Hi, my name is Min. I'm a photographer from California, and my specialty is capturing architecture, lifestyle, and just beautiful moments that's all around us. So here we are in a community college, and I think this is a great place for us to find some amazing locations and unexpected things. So what I like to do is usually just, walk through and just observe the spaces, not necessarily taking any photo yet. I can use my iPhone and just capture little snippets, little vignettes that I see. Usually I don't pay attention to the entire building, but just the smaller moments within the structure or within a space that speak to me. It could be the light, it could be the shadow, it could be small compositions that just strikes an interest. So let's just go and see what we can find. I think this building is really interesting. It has amazing line and angles, and I think this could make a really great image. For example, if you take a typical shot, it may be looking something like this, but if you zoom in and if you isolate the elements and just focus on those angles and lines, you get a totally different, more graphic image, such as this one. And you can also pay attention to smaller details, such as the light and shadow. For example, this bench here is very sculptural, and I think that could be very, very interesting. So pay attention to things that are large scale as well as smaller. Look far and look close. I use my iPhone a lot to sketch before I actually do a shoot because it's just a quick way to test out different compositions without committing to a full frame high-res image. It's just much more flexible and nimble as a tool. I think by going up, you get a whole new different perspective. For example, you can see the larger space. And as you get closer, you can isolate the elements into fewer elements and it becomes more graphically strong. I think I'll come back here and do a shoot, maybe with a model. And I think it'd be a great image. I really like this angle because it's really dynamic up of these diagonal line. I think diagonal line always make your image feels a lot more exciting and alive. So I feel like this strong diagonal is going to really make the image more impactful. Especially, I'm going to introduce the model walking through the space to give the sense of scale. Also, just to give it a sense of story. This feels like it could be a train station or like a scene of a movie. I mean, you can play all the scenarios in your head, create a storyline. And so I think this character could be like something that you could add to make the image more exciting. I'm using a zoom lens here, a 24-70, that allows me to take in quite a large image. However, I'm going to bring it a little closer, just make this dynamic diagonal shape as the main element in the photo. And I'm going to have the model walk through this element there. Yeah, I think that's cool. I'm just going to have her stand there just to give a more moody feel. And I feel like sometimes when the subject is just standing there and having this kind of tranquil moment, it gives a really nice calm mood to the image. Really nice. I'm also going to capture the image without the model. One of the things that I think that makes for a very interesting image is you don't have to always have the focus of the frame in the center of the image. You can shift the focus to the side and use more negative space. For example, this. So instead of focusing on the object or the building itself, you can focus on the connection, like how the different materials meet, how the edges of the building meet something else. It could be the building meets the sky, the building meets the ground, but that connection is a really interesting thing to focus on, and instead of the object itself. So I think I got some really interesting shots here. So let's see what we can find at another location. I immediately saw this very strong diagonal line in the building. And it reminds me of this famous photograph by Fan Ho, this photographer from Hong Kong. He had this amazing image from the 50s that has this very strong dynamic diagonal line. And I feel it captured the idea that this ephemeral shadow is almost like a physical architectural feature. That's really a great thing to think about. Even though they're just ephemeral and changing all the time, you can treat it as a physical feature and play with it. I'm going to have our models do a very strong walk toward the shadow side. Yeah, I like that. And I'm going to have her come back again and interact with the line as if it's like so I'm going to have her kind of like maybe doing some sort of things like this, like lean, touch, just like doing fun things that try to create a moment that's And that's how you sort of interact with a shadow element and create something interesting. When I'm traveling, I don't have a ton of time at a location, so obviously I have to be prudent about my time and just focus on the angles that I don't really want to capture. I don't take a ton of images either. As you can see, I only shoot a few images, and I don't just kind of spray and pray as some people use it. And just really pay attention to my composition and really take a moment and compose and slow down, and so you can get that image in fewer shots. You can also lean your head to one side, kind of like, yeah, just like really dreamy, and then maybe drop one elbow further. Yeah, create a beautiful shape, and just kind of direct your model to kind of create something different, something iconic. Yeah, that's great. All right.
This is Steve Sweatpants here, and right now we're in Chinatown, and today we are going to try to find some complementary colors and positions of light source. One of the reasons why I chose Chinatown is because it's one of my favorite places to come in the city when it comes to colors. It's very colorful, it's full of characters, it's full of life. Like I said, I'm self-taught, and I learned everything just from experience, so this is not like the scientific way to look at the color wheel. I just like to put colors together in photos that normally are not there together. So say if somebody's wearing all red and they happen to be in front of a red wall, I would try to take that photo because that will be unique for the person, that will be unique for the time, and it's a reference to, like, you know, where you're at in the city. So hopefully we can find something like that today. Oh, this is my favorite little lady. I just saw her earlier. So I'm taking a picture of her because she's just awesome, and the Empire State Building, the World Trade Center is right behind there, so it looks kind of sick. That came out kind of fiery, bro. See, this looks cool. You see, you got dudes walking around, you got kids walking, you got the World Trade Center and a bunch of fog. Obviously having like even the red, white, and blue from the truck to having the red, white, and blue from the flag and the World Trade Center being blue. Being in Chinatown is also really cool because of all the buildings are different colors. So you just have like a million tones, just tones everywhere. Oh. Like I said, you have to be observant, you have to be really quick, and you have to be alert. When you see something that just interests you and catches your eye, you should really just go for it. Oh. You should go down East Broadway. East Broadway would be a little bit cooler to go down. All right. I'm Steve Sweatpants, and right now we are in Chinatown, and this is actually one of my favorite spots to shoot at. One of the photos from the lesson is actually in this spot, in the same exact position where you're looking at me right now. So right now we're trying to find complementary colors, some cool light in a position of light source, and hopefully we can see some really crazy ass people walking around here too. I've already been blessed twice, so let's see what happens. This is really cool to post up anywhere around here actually. Like we could post up right here. Well, we could post up right here. See, this is where all the action happens right here. Yeah. See, this guy who's coming up right now, like the swaggy old man with the plaid shirt and the Kangol hat, he has the colors on. That was the man. That was the man. That's squad goals right there, bro. Since his shirt is like blue and green plaid, it matches the blue and green on the building in the back. So you just look for specific colors to heighten other ones. So you just always look for somebody who's wearing something that complements something in the background. See, he has green on. So there's another example. If you find somebody wearing a certain color top, or there's a certain kind of color car and it's around something that has a complementing color, like a red car with somebody wearing a red shirt, or, you know, green grass with somebody wearing a green shirt, or something along those lines, just take a photo of it and let me see what your interpretation of it is. This dude looks pretty cool. This probably would look cool as a black and white. When I'm shooting stuff, even for colors, complementary colors, I think about the edit a lot, and I think about if I want to make the photo black and white or not. And anytime I see somebody wearing like kind of like a lighter top and as opposed to like a very solid background, I just always like to play around to see if it looks cool in black and white. I like to have my black and whites a little bit more contrasty and a little bit more focus on the black and white and less like gray area.
This dude's blue shirt looks really pretty sick.
The light is really dope right now too. It's falling in places like really nice. It gives like a nice little overcast and stuff.
I'm shooting this corner because I like the way that the light's falling in the corner, and I can get people walking into the light.
So when I get people walking into the light from this side, you get really cool shadows. They came out pretty dope. Oh, dude, this dog is sick. Hey, can I take a picture of your dog?
Yeah.
Hey, 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 hey. Oh, hey, wait. Oh, hey. One more.
Just cute dog. What kind of dog is it?
Shih Tzu.
Oh, is it a girl or boy? What's her name?
Sugar.
Sugar?
Yeah.
Can I take a picture of the dog right here? Really? Sorry, I know you.
What?
Sugar.
This is going to be on YouTube. You know that, right? So this dog is actually like the perfect example of complementary colors because she's wearing like the pink collar and she has like pink on in the background, which is pretty cool.
Bye, Sugar.
Bye.
See you later. Peace out. I'll give you some money later.
That was perfect, dude. Like you can't have this dog Sugar out here. So even in the photo, it looks really crazy. Look at Sugar. So I shot that on 1.8 mainly because I just wanted to focus on how fucking cute that dog was. Having that dog be there is literally like the ideal situation because like the dog had on every color that I was looking for. She had like a beige coat. No, she was like white. She had a white coat on and she had like a beige head. And that literally fits everything what's going on with the buildings, and her pink collar brings out the colors that's going on that side of the building as well too. So it's like literally the perfect combination of colors. I'm Steve Sweatpants and we're in Chinatown right now, Chinatown, New York. And the lesson plan was finding complementary colors and also positions of light source. And I think we accomplished both those things today. We used different kinds of light from shooting scale on the roof, also to shooting like kind of like street photography around the city right now in Chinatown. So the next thing that we want to do is do vanishing points and light source in Myrtle and Broadway in Brooklyn. This light looks really crazy right now, dude.
I find actually it's much harder when there's so many people, there's so much busyness, and there's a lot more, I like the cleanness of sort of less people. But it's sort of, I guess your mood really, but it's just such an interesting exercise to look at the same space and even come in the middle of the afternoon and, just see how the light is. And it can create interesting harsh shadows if you want to work with that, but I prefer this soft light at sunrise and sunset. Also pay attention to your background. So when I'm shooting this, there's like this wonderful silhouettes and nice light here, but if you go from that angle, you get all the buildings in the background, which can be a really distracting background. So pay attention, you have all this beautiful light and stuff happening and you get excited, but what is behind the actual image is just as important as what's in the middle in the frame. And so I think people get tunnel vision on an exciting, charismatic face, and you absolutely forget what's behind that, and that is just as important. Poles coming out of people's head. In this case, the buildings are very distracting, so I'm gonna just try to keep my frame this way with a nice clean background. I think like with these surfers, I knew I wanted to get close to them when they're coming out of the water. And I didn't actually see it until I asked him to stop. And he turned around and there was this beautiful reflection backlit. And it's again that same philosophy that you just have to kind of do a 360 around whatever it is that you're photographing, because it has you go in with one perspective, what you think the shot you're making. And then sometimes you get so obsessed with that one shot. And if you turn around and look at it from another angle, it's even more beautiful. So I just am constantly moving. And here it comes. This is nice. So you should also be really pretty again, have your aperture at the right setting so that when something goes by, you're ready. I'm just sort of watching as the light is changing right now, and I keep adjusting my aperture. And around sunrise and sunset, depending where you are on the planet, you know, you can lose light and gain light pretty quickly. So you just have to really pay attention. But I love this, again, I mean, I love these hours, and I think that even as it gets darker and darker, it's so beautiful now, but it's actually gonna also be beautiful, like even in a half an hour. The light is gonna get more and more interesting. So right now, I have my ISO is at 320. The thing you wanna keep low is your ISO because it impacts the quality of the image. I will definitely keep it as low as possible, and I'll open my aperture and I'll move the shutter speed down to a lower shutter speed until you want it to be sharp too. Only then, when I've exhausted those other two possibilities, will I start increasing the ISO, because it really does make a better quality image. And then, you know, sometimes I want a really slow shutter speed. I want to show the movement of the ocean, and maybe there's somebody standing in it, and the movement around them can be really beautiful. But other times I want to stop the action. Somebody might be running by and I want to capture that moment without any blur. So I'm really paying attention to the shutter speed and what I'm trying to do. So something else I love is just the lines in the water. And so I'll sometimes go up close to people first and let them know that I'm shooting them. And then I just let them become a part of the landscape and let them kind of fall into that. But then they're okay with me photographing them, and it can be much more of a scene setter landscape shot. When I'm doing storytelling, I like to combine these very sweet images with stuff that's a little grittier too. And that's also why I like to come back multiple times, because your mood, like how you're feeling, absolutely impacts what your images are like. So I'm in a sweet mood today, and all the pictures are going to be overly sweet. It's true. And so it's really good to kind of come back and explore your moods too. You're going to see things differently depending on how you're feeling.
Typically, I try to handhold absolutely as much as I can, but in the evening time when I'm shooting long exposures, anything really over 15 seconds, that's when I pull out my tripod. And I tend to be very liberal with what I use as a tripod. It could be a rock, it could be, you know, a steady hand, I don't know. But when I want to get really sharp, tack sharp images at night, especially when I'm getting stars moving, when I want to get a fire that's kind of lighting up, or water that's looking really milky, that's when I put my tripod down, and I'm usually shooting somewhere between you know, a sixth of a second to, you know, a couple hours. Typically for me, I love to use ultralight tripods, carbon fiber. I'm not somebody who's taking mine on and off all the time. I usually just attach my camera and fold the legs and put it over my shoulder and move with it. So I like light tripods that can be shoved in a backpack, can be kind of mobile and taken with you anywhere. I tend to take this one backpacking a lot, shot kind of all over the world with it, and usually the lighter equipment works better. One thing people have a problem with is they feel like the lighter ones vibrate, and when I have that issue, I usually just attach some weight to it, a little carabiner or a string, attach a backpack to the bottom. It holds it super firm. So the A7S it's one of the best cameras I've ever used for low light. When I say low light, I basically mean that it has a super sensitive ISO range. Its native ISO setting is 1600, which means that it can basically output beautiful images like at a very high ISO. Most cameras you would never even want to put there. This camera for me is nice because it's kind of does it all for me. It's not really the camera I would go and want to shoot big billboards with, or big, huge, you know, gigantic, you know, images to be printed, but it's something that works great for low light, great for editorial, magazines, like, you know, social media, digital web, and it's light, small, and it's full frame. So say you don't have a camera that can shoot super low light. Well, the lucky part is that you can still get away with just shooting a longer exposure. Right now, my settings are right around 1 second at 1600 ISO. But if you had a camera that wasn't as sensitive to light, you could just basically bump your shutter speed down to maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 18 seconds, and you could still get amazing, really, really good results. The difference is that you're going to have a little more movement in your subjects. One of my favorite things to shoot is shooting low light, shooting long exposures, but having people or objects in them. It kind of gives a surreal nature to the images. Having people standing around a fire, or having, you know, someone kind of far off in the distance lit up some way, or light painting, and being able to do that. I find that having a camera that's really sensitive to light helps to create that movement in the image. One of the lenses I always try to bring is a specialty lens, and this is a 24-1.4, and this is really set up for night photography. It's mainly when I use it because I like the shallow depth of field, but more importantly, I like how much light it lets in. So typically with this lens, I'll be taking a step back, you know, trying to get the entire scene, and allowing myself to shoot a lower shutter speed because I have a smaller f-stop, so I can let in more light, right? So I'm going to throw this on my camera and see if I can crank my ISO down a little bit and actually crank my shutter speed up from maybe like 1.5 seconds to like 1/6 of a second. For shooting at night, there's a lot of different sources of light you can use, and everyone has their own personal preference. Headlights work great, flashlights, car lights. There's obviously like studio strobes and things like that you can use, or any other type of strobe or flash. And then those are kind of all the I wouldn't call them fake lighting, but essentially that's kind of more of like the tungsten, right? light. So all those sources would be more of like artificial light. And then you have your kind of natural lights, your warm tones. So long exposure photography is really kind of the art of shooting a shutter speed that is meant to absorb light, right? So to absorb light, you really want to have something below 1/6 of a second, where your camera must be on a tripod. I find that, typically when I'm shooting long exposures, I'm shooting, 1/6 of a second, 1 second, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, or multiple hours. And all of those provide different results, but ultimately they're trying to do the same thing. You're trying to bring light to a subject that's pretty dark or dim. Long exposures can usually be shot in the evening, around a campfire, around the moonlight, if you're trying to capture the stars, if you're trying to capture moving lights of cars on a freeway and you want to shoot multiple exposures. It can really be done in a totally a bunch of different ways, but really it's all about kind of the end result of giving yourself a bright scene from something that was basically in the evening or dark. There are times when you'll shoot long exposures where you really kind of want to focus on getting maybe something really abstract. And that's typically when I'll lay my camera out, maybe I'm camping, maybe I'm car camping, I don't know, but I'm somewhere where I'm not going to get a bunch of ambient light, meaning I'm not going to get cars driving by or people walking by with headlamps, and maybe I'm out somewhere where it's totally dark. And what I would do is I'd set my camera out for maybe an hour, 2 hours, and I would just basically let my camera absorb all the light, and the results from that can be really cool. You can have star trails circling around something, or you can have, the sun rising with some stars above it. It can give you really unique results, but it's usually complete trial and error. So you typically at the end of the night, when I'm done kind of shooting all the scenes that I wanted to set up or shoot, I would just set up my camera, let it run, and go to bed. Maybe set myself a timer so that I get up and turn it off in the middle of the night, or let it run till it dies and wake up and just see my results. It's usually kind of like unwrapping a present. You just never really know what it's going to be. So right now, when I'm shooting this campfire scene, I'm actually shooting under 30 seconds. So every camera typically has a shutter inside that will let you do 30-second exposures. When you want to go above 30-second exposures, that's when you have to use a cable release. Cable release is a small object basically that plugs into your camera and gives you a remote trigger that you can lock and hold. So typically, if you want to shoot a multiple hour exposure, or 30 minutes or 5 minutes, you have to time it yourself, and you basically lock that cable release, let it go, come back and unlock it. Cable releases are also really, really good for when you want to have absolutely no camera vibration. So if you don't want to be touching your camera, shooting the trigger yourself, and you want to be standing away shooting it, that's a form of using a cable release. That can also be super effective during the day as well. One of the important things about cable releases too is that not all of them are wired. You can also use infrared releases, which can actually go right to most cameras' little infrared sensor or your cell phone, which is also a really cool way to use the technology. So you can effectively use a bunch of different ways to release your camera if you don't want to touch it. So for nighttime photography, I would say one type of camera I really shy away from is my cell phone. I typically, will shoot, for me at least, I'll shoot my phone, sort of, 20 minutes before sunset, or 20 minutes after sunrise till about 20 minutes before sunset, because one thing that the phone doesn't do super well is low light right now, and I have found that it can really do an amazing job midday. It can do an amazing job when the light is getting really good, but if you want to shoot that really contrasty sun going down, or if you want to shoot a longer exposure, it really brings a lot of noise to the image because you can't control your ISO and all your settings.